this news came out from Football Scoop before we started recording. Hank says, if Jared Parker offense can score points, develop, and recruit, who cares? That's the dream. More interested in Matt Luke as a possible O-line replacement from Georgia. Thoughts? JP says, go get Matt Luke for offensive line and stops the cheap Notre Dame talk. JP and Hank, really appreciate these super chats. So, really interesting ball coach. I mean, you got Jared Parker, who has that thick country accent. You'd be getting another guy from the South here. So, Matt Luke, played at Ole Miss, was the co-OC and O-line coach at Ole Miss from 2012 to 16, a period where Ole Miss was doing all sorts of sketchy stuff. So if you want Notre Dame to buy players, maybe this is your – I'm totally kidding. Bad joke. And then head coach at Ole Miss from 17 to 19, and then was at Georgia from 2019 to 2021, and stepped away in 2022 from coaching to spend more time with his family. And as we know, with that kind of thing, when someone wants to step away from the family, they spend a lot of time with their family and then decide, you know what, I want to get back into coaching. So here he is, report that he is very high on Notre Dame's wish list for this position. What would you think about him, Tim, if Notre Dame's to go this route?
First off, I'd be shocked because he's a deep South guy. He hasn't crossed those that Mason-Dixon. He hasn't gotten up there yet. He's a deep South guy. Great football coach. He really is a good football coach. He's, once again, you look at guys he's been around. Played for Tommy Tuberville, obviously. Then, David Cutcliffe. He learned under him. Worked with Philip Fulmer, who before Philip Fulmer was a great football coach at Tennessee, he was a long time offensive line coach for Tennessee. So obviously he learned how to coach O-line from there. And going back to this interim thing, he became the interim coach after they fired Hugh Freeze and all that fiasco with Coach Freeze. They picked Matt Luke because he could command a room. He could command a team. He goes out. I think they went 6-6 his first year, couldn't go to a bowl, stays there 3 years, got fired. I think it was the wide receiver incident, correct? I was just reading about some stuff the other day when I started looking at old lines. Remember the wide receiver in the Egg Bowl that faked peeing on the hydrant? Yeah, I think he got let go after that. Goes to Georgia. Kirby Smart hires him, does a great job, wins national championship. Their O-lines will just maul the heck out of you with those big guys. But took a year off. Is burnout. There's some articles out there on the internet that are awesome to read about him. He's a deep family guy. ESPN followed him for an entire season, his first year in 17. It's called The Season. You can watch it on SEC Network. It's on all the time. I've seen a handful. He's been on my go-to list the last couple of days, just watching O-line guys, trying to see who they're going to pick. So he would definitely be up there in the top 3 when it comes to elite guys Indy could get.
Goolsby, any thoughts?
I think Southern recruiting.
Yes, he's got ties.
He's got ties. High school coaches down there. He's been down there. I don't know, Tim, and this is again another instance where we need Lou back. But I don't know, Tim. Is there a precedent at a Notre Dame? I mean, sure, we pulled plenty of players out of the South, but a coach that Mississippi is Mississippi. To come up to Midwestern cold academia of Notre Dame. I don't know if there is a precedent, but when I hear a name like that and you look at a resume like that, I just think of big Southern recruits. That's what I think of.
Well, that's funny you say that because, I started, because it's been so quiet on the front. Nothing's going out there. So you just start, you see the mock list. And you just start going down him. You got obviously the Minnesota coach. Well, he's coached in the Midwest his entire life. You got, Joe Rudolph, the Wisconsin coach. I love him because he played for Barry Alvarez. Coach, he learned from Barry Alvarez. And then he's Paul Chris. And then he's at Vautech now, but he's a Midwestern guy. And then with Matt Luke, someone had posted about him. I found that this a couple of days ago. I started doing research on him. And it's like, man, is he really going to leave retirement? He's got $10 million in his bank. He even mentioned it. I got, with all these buyouts, you got $10 million. What the heck do I need to coach for? He's got plenty to live the rest of his life. So if Freeman gets him out of retirement, man, that is a recruiting win because he's going to go south.
Tim, is it fair
to find large dudes?
Is it fair to assume he's a man of faith?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, you just
okay. So if I'm, I'm putting my salesman hat on, I'm trying to find some commonality with Coach down there. And I'll say this, just in terms of like Southern football versus what Notre Dame is.
Yeah.
I was at the Clemson game this past year and sitting next to a Clemson. Yeah, and if they're watching, I forget their names at this point. But husband and wife. Husband was a diehard Notre Dame fan, but they were both from the South. Wife went to South Carolina. This is both of their first time coming to Notre Dame, being on campus. And these are like SEC football fans, and they were blown away. Blown away. So we tend to think like, oh, everything's better down south in terms of college football, but they were like blown away at the fan base, Notre Dame, the mystique, all of that. So I'd say this is me saying, you're telling me there's a chance.
Well, it's funny you say that because, Kirby Smart talked about that when they came up in 2017, and all the Georgia fans that were just like raving about South Bend. They're like, how have we never been up here in our entire history of our program? And so many articles down south on the blogs and the internet talking about their fans. Like, my God, going to South Bend was like, we got to do this once a decade. So you're right, Mike. When teams travel up there, they have a great time. They enjoy it. It's Notre Dame. It's still, no matter what people say, they're irrelevant. They don't care. Who cares? You haven't won a title in 100 years, all that stuff. It's still Notre Dame.
Yeah, and I think it'd be fun to just peel Coach apart in terms of like, where did that burnout come from? What was the genesis of that burnout, and how Notre Dame environment is different than an SEC football environment. But anyways, we'll see what happens.
That's a great point, because he mentions in one of the articles, when he retired for a year, that it was just recruiting. He was like, my God, he's all the same thing. He's all in the South. You have to recruit every single second. And he says, it's wild.